Well, it is 6:31. I know there are more people coming in. Do you two want to get started or give it a minute or so?
If you see people come in, let's just wait another 3 minutes, if it's okay with everybody. We have some speakers, and I just want to make sure we have as many people who can hear them as can be expected. That's okay with you, Sarah?
Sounds good.
It's a pretty busy night in New York City as we open our indoor dining, so. No ghost town here. Must be in that parallel universe. Tell us what you think, Will. Are more people coming in, or?
Let me see if more people are signing up, or
Okay.
it doesn't look like it.
Okay.
So I think you're safe to let
Okay.
folks trickle in, but probably this is the bulk of everybody.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Community Board 8 Small Business Meeting, September 30th, 2020. When we put our agenda together, you could see it was a very general, take a look at the restart, because things can change in a moment. And so we weren't sure where we would be. Tonight, we're actually going to focus on the opening of indoor dining, which is today is the first day of indoor dining. And we wanted to focus on that. And we've got 3 speakers from various New York City health agencies, one the Department of Health, the other the Department of Consumer Affairs, and then the Department of Small Business Services. And I'll introduce them individually in a minute, but I just wanted to thank them for coming on to the Zoom meeting tonight on what is pretty short notice. But as everybody has learned in this COVID opening environment, things can change fairly quickly, hopefully for the better, but that's yet to be determined. So anyway, unfortunately, like, we're having this meeting tonight, and you know, we're going to hopefully have some good suggestions for both restaurant owners and diners, but because people are in the middle of trying to keep their businesses running, you know, this time of day may not be the most optimum time for people who are running businesses to participate in our meeting. So we're going to think about maybe scheduling a time, maybe earlier in the day, maybe a morning meeting at some point to shake it up a little bit, to see if that might encourage some of the, or not encourage, but allow a lot of the small business and restaurant owners to participate before they open their doors. It's not like they're not working already, but to allow them to participate at a time when perhaps customers may not be in their shops and restaurants, and they're taking care of business. Okay, so without further ado, unless Sarah, please chime in where you want to.
Oh no, this is an exciting agenda. Thank you so much for putting it together, Valerie and Will.
Okay, thanks. So I just want to start just a little intro, and then we'll throw it over to the representatives of some of the agencies and talk a little bit about options. But you know, as I began with, today is the first day of indoor dining. It was announced that today would be the day by the governor earlier in the month. And I'll just give a little bit of an overview of what we understand to be the criteria. And that is that you can open your restaurant to 25% of its capacity without counting any bar service. There cannot be any bar service. You have to publicly post your capacity outside your restaurant. There is no service permitted after midnight. The tables indoors must be at least 6 feet apart. All patrons and workers at all times, but all patrons must be wearing a mask except when seated at the table. So if you are getting up to go to the bathroom, you have to have your mask on, etc. You need to give your contact information for tracing purposes, and there are temperature checks before you're seated at the table. So I say that for both of the point of view of possible patrons as well as restaurant owners. Everybody has to work together to make sure that this can be a success. So if you're not willing as a patron to have your temperature checked or give your contact information, you know, don't put the restaurant owner in a bad position that he or she has to turn you away. There's some responsibility that goes on here, and we should all be working towards the same end. There are going to be, my understanding is that this is somewhat of an experiment, and all the guidelines are going to be reassessed on November 1st to see how everyone is doing. There are going to be 400 enforcement personnel. I'm not exactly sure. Maybe some of the people on the call from the city agencies will be more aware, but there will be 400 enforcement personnel walking around to make sure that the guidelines are being followed. And that's along with, my understanding, a state police task force. I don't know if you've been in some of the outdoor restaurants, but there is a fair amount of inspection going on. I was at a breakfast meeting outdoors the other day, and people were coming in with tape measures and measuring distances with tables, etc. So there is a fair amount of enforcement out there. Interestingly enough, you know, I just want to say, you also have to have your ventilation systems. If you're a restaurant owner, there are various ways that has to be done. I'm not an expert, but you have to have a MERV 13 filter or better. And my understanding is, to a certain extent, simple air purifiers with HEPA filters are available as well. I did want to make a note. I tried to invite this group to come, but it was on rather short notice. I'm going to say who they are, and then if later on, after we hear from some of our speakers, hopefully give their information again. But there is an architectural group out there. It's called the Rockwell Group, and they have been working with restaurants to come up with design solutions for their outdoor spaces, working with a group called Dine Out NYC. And they have actually put together a kit. If you go to their website, which is rockwellgroup.com, you'll see a module that's been designed that's adaptable for outdoor dining, that allows businesses to operate within the current health guidelines. And it's really quite interesting. It's a pro bono project that they went out and did, and it's being deployed at restaurants and bars in diverse neighborhoods throughout the city. Will, I didn't have time to coordinate this with you, but if you go to their website, we might be able to put it on the share screen.
Yeah, what is?
It's rockwellgroup.com. And this kit that shows you how to put the module together can be downloaded from their website at dineoutnyc@rockwellgroup.com. So it's just another example of how people are working together in New York City to put us back together and thrive. There are all sorts of, I don't know how many restaurant people are on the call or listening in, but it's daunting to try to comply with all these regulations and still keep your eye on the ball, which is serving your customers. But very low tech solutions are being employed with much success. I know that many of the community board members have been going throughout the community. Everybody's quite pleased by the creativity of our restaurant owners on the Upper East Side and all over the city for that matter, and how they have met this challenge with great success. One of the low-tech solutions that's being offered is movable partitions in your restaurant in the indoor space so that you can accommodate more people at a table and move it around. And another thing that this Rockwell group has also thought about too is if you have a hostess station inside your restaurant, you might be better served to move that outside of the restaurant to minimize the number of people indoors, and also to keep one of your employees in the fresh air as long as possible. So I thought that was a pretty good idea. Again, pretty simple. You just have to take your station and move it outdoors. And this way you don't have a clog inside, and you're making it a better atmosphere for everyone who's involved. So I guess we can get to questions, but I'm going to ask some of the representatives from the city agencies if maybe they can just talk a little bit about what their particular agency is, how they are involved in the reopening of indoor dining. And I guess the first person I'll ask and thank her for being the first volunteer is Pauline Ferranti from the Department of Health. Pauline, thank you for joining us tonight. And anything that you can share with respect to the Department of Health's involvement in what's in this reopening program. And then once we hear from the three agency members, we can open it up to the floor, I think, for questions, if that works for everybody.
That sounds great. Thanks, Valerie, for having me. And thank you for pulling all the other agencies together. You went through a really great overview of the guidelines that the state has set forth for New York City in terms of indoor dining. I don't think there's much more for me to add in terms of the information that you shared. But I think what is important and what has been on the forefront of the health department is there have been increased rates in positive cases in certain communities within the city. And I think it's really important for all of us as we continue to move forward and reopen that we all take responsibility and follow all of these social distancing guidelines, because we can see that when there is no adherence to those guidelines, cases will go up and rather quickly. And so we really just want to remember and maintain the core four, which is stay home if you're sick, wear a face covering, wash your hands frequently, and there's one more, but I can't remember off the top of my head. What is it? Stay home if you're sick. Oh, and maintain physical distancing, obviously. So we really want to just encourage, as restaurants open, we know it's been a very difficult time, especially for the restaurant industry. But the health experts have always indicated that indoor space is potentially more conducive to the virus being spread and transmitted. And so this is the reason why the governor and the mayor have decided on these particular rules. And then also just keep in mind that, again, as we continue to open, if we do see cases continue to increase, the unfortunate option will be that we would have to go back and rewind everything and potentially see shutdown again. So I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, or I don't want to be the one to continuously remind people. However, it is really important that we all remain vigilant and responsible, because it's not just for you, it's for the most vulnerable of us. And it's really just important for us to maintain all of those guidelines. So in terms of the health department and indoor dining, I think the most important role that our agency has in this particular part of reopening obviously would be around inspections. So normal inspections of restaurants will resume, but they have been modified to take into account the current pandemic. So if your restaurant is scheduled for an annual inspection where you receive your letter grade, now restaurants will be notified beforehand to give them a period of time in which to expect an inspector before they would just show up at your business. But now they're offering that time frame so that you can prepare your staff, so that everyone has proper PPE, and that you are able to follow those social distancing guidelines. But those regular inspections will continue. As of right now, there are no talks of extreme fines, obviously, because there is like a situation in which businesses are just starting to reopen. But again, it's more focusing on education at this point. And then there is that other level of enforcement to make sure that outdoor dining, if you have outdoor dining, is adhered to properly. And then as indoor dining continues, that the restaurants are following those rules. But those inspectors are made up of multiple agencies inspectors. So it could be a health department inspector, but it could also be an FDNY member, an NYPD member, someone from the Office of Special Enforcement. So it's not just the DOHMH going out to do those social distancing reopening inspections. So I don't know specifically about the 400 number. I know the mayor was talking about 400 NYPD staff that's being designated to those areas that we're seeing an uptick for mask regulations. So if you're not wearing a mask out in public, and you're in a space with a lot of other people, you could be fined for that. And that's just an effort for us to drive down those numbers of positive cases in those communities where we're seeing upticks. But that's the only 400 number that I know off the top of my head. So I can always go back and see what the number is for inspectors with regards to indoor dining, but I don't know if my other colleagues from the other agencies might have a better idea. So I think I can stop there. If there are any questions, obviously after my colleagues speak, we can all provide some answers to some questions folks may have.
Thanks a lot.
Sure.
So let's go to Eric Parker from the Department of Small Business Services. Eric, thanks so much for joining us tonight, and we'd like to know how you are assisting in this effort.
Thank you, Valerie. Can you hear me?
Oh, yes.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Eric Parker with the Department of Small Business Services. From the start of the shutdown, SBS has, like all other agencies, we transitioned to providing our services online. That included providing financing assistance to small businesses, as well as business courses to those small businesses that were in need of instructions on how to transition to an online platform. When the phase 1, 2, 3, and 4 reopening started, we were hosting webinars with our partner agencies, providing guidance and guidelines to how to reopen within compliance of city rules and regulations. When we heard about the September 30th indoor dining reopening, we quickly put together a webinar with our partner agencies, which included the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, Department of Consumer and Worker Protection, Fire Department, and the Buildings Department to provide that early guidance. Although there are still some unanswered questions about specific guidelines, we are still diligently working to provide information as much as we can as far as up-to-date information on how restaurants can open within the guidelines. When the Open Restaurants program started with DOT, our folks from the compliance team, we have a team of compliance advisors that actually go out and provide guidance on how to comply with rules and regulations under the Open Restaurants program. That team is still in place, continuing to provide guidance. Now that we have indoor guidelines, we have a ton of information on our website. entitled Restaurant Reopening Guidelines, which has information from the state, as well as Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, and some other city rules and regulations. So for the most part, we've been partnering with our sister agencies in providing the most up-to-date information as to how restaurants can open within the guidelines that was set forth by the state. We have a hotline that's launched back in June, which is a 1-888 SBS4 NYC, which is a hotline providing up-to-date information to small businesses who have specific questions about complying with new rules and regulations. So for the most part, we've really been working with our agency partners in providing those guidelines, providing virtual compliance consultations, as well as providing free PPE through our local community partners. So for the most part, wherever there is a need for a small business to understand how they can better navigate, we're there to provide that assistance, as well as one-on-one consultations with small business owners, and just a whole wealth of information that's on our website. You can go to nyc.gov/NYC business to find a complete list of all the services and programs. I'll take any questions that you may have pertaining to the indoor restaurant guidelines and how else we're playing a role in helping businesses understand those rules and regulations.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Maybe you can share with Will some of that, those phone numbers and direct links. While I'm going to introduce Tanhila Rahman from the Department of Consumer Affairs. Tanhila?
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes, thank you for joining
Hi,
us.
Valerie. Thank you, Community Board 8. My name is Tanhila Rahman. I'm from the New York City Department of Consumer and Worker Protection. We have a new name. We're no longer Department of Consumer Affairs. We're now Department of Consumer Worker Protection. So as my colleagues mentioned, Pauline and Eric, we've been working closely with our sister agencies and doing outreach, for businesses that have reopened under phases 1 through 4. In addition, our agency, we put together particular resources for the different phases of reopening. We just created a new document for the additional industries that have reopened, which includes indoor dining. So we have very specific guidelines on our website. If everyone could visit our website, it's nyc.gov/workers. And we have the New York State requirements for indoor dining. As my colleagues mentioned, limit occupancy to 25% maximum capacity, and also, designate separate entrances and exits for customers and employees where possible, taking a temperature of every patron at the door, and also collecting information, full name, phone number, and address from one member of each party for contact tracing purposes. And also, closing indoor food service at midnight and just social distancing. It's really important that employers, they download the New York State, the safety plan, and have it available at their work site. And the other thing is that they conduct daily health screenings and keep a record of it for their employees. So they have to keep a daily log of employee health screenings. Some important information from our agencies, and we do enforce city workplace laws. So just a reminder that our agency enforces the New York City paid safe and sick leave law. And this law covers employees at any size business in New York City, including part-time employees, full-time employees, temporary employees. Under the law, employees can get up to 40 hours, 5 days of paid safe and sick leave each calendar year. At businesses with 5 or more employees, the paid sick leave is paid. At businesses with fewer than 5 employees is unpaid. And we mentioned that employees can use sick leave for themselves or for a family member, including preventative medical care, for example, staying home to observe symptoms of COVID-19. And we do encourage employers to take additional steps to protect all employees, customers, and the public. Our agency, we have this great New York City workplace laws document, which has a chart of the city workplace laws in addition to the federal and state sick leave law, like the New York State Emergency COVID-19 paid sick leave. And we had this great chart on our website. And in addition, we launched a worker protection hotline back in June. So workers can call 311 and ask for the worker protection hotline if they have questions about reopening, health and safety guidelines, paid safe and sick leave law, or just, other questions. They could call 311 and ask for the worker protection hotline. The other update is that, right now we're not reviewing or processing any new or renewal Sidewalk Cafe applications due to the mayor's executive order that was issued in June. Certain laws and rules relating to Sidewalk Cafes have been suspended to administer the open restaurants program. So restaurants, they have to, go through the DOT's program for outdoor seating. Now that indoor dining commences, the restaurants, if they may use their enclosed Sidewalk Cafe as part of its broader capacity for indoor dining. The regulations governing indoor dining, including the 25% occupancy limit and 6 feet distance between tables, will still be required. Also, because our enclosed cafe laws and rules remain suspended, they do not need to renew their enclosed, Sidewalk Cafe license or pay, anything at this time. We do have all of our information available, in multiple languages on our website. So we encourage New Yorkers to visit us at nyc.gov/DCWP alerts. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Thank you very much. Okay. At this point, since we have everybody on, I guess we can go to questions from the public. Do we have any questions for any of our guests?
I saw Judy Schneider's hand went up, but it came back down. But it's also a good time for me to remind everybody that the way that Valerie and Sarah will be able to see you and call on you to ask questions for our agency representatives is to use the raise hand feature through the participants menu at the bottom of your screen. So you'll find the little button that says participants, a box will pop up and you'll see a raise hand button on that box that you click. And then Valerie and Sarah and I can see you as you raise your hand. And if you're on the phone, it's *9 to raise your hand. You have one person from the public, Judy Schneider, as I said, and then our board chair, Alita Camp.
Okay, Judy, fine.
I have two questions. I'll get the last speaker, Mila. I guess my first question is for her. Am I understanding correctly, since the mayor extended the outdoor dining permanently, that restaurants who had in the past applied for a sidewalk cafe and had to pay money for that permit, that they no longer have to do that? That it's all free now?
Hi, Judy. So your question was if a business had the Sidewalk Cafe license right in the past, is it no longer usable, right? Because since outdoor dining is permanent?
Right. Do they still have to continue to pay for that license?
No, all of the consent fees, they've been refunded earlier this year for existing Sidewalk Cafe licensees. And right now we're not accepting reviewing renewals or new applications until further notice. So regarding the DOT, since outdoor dining program is now permanent, businesses would have to go through DOT, I guess, to apply for the open restaurant program, but we can follow up with you in terms of any updates on the Sidewalk Cafe, rules and regulations.
I would appreciate that. And my other question is for Pauline, and it's about the masks. I wasn't quite sure what you and Valerie were referring to, that there are 400 people. Is that from the mayor's office, from the police department, from what department? Department of Health, that's going out to enforce mask wearing? And I'll go a little astray here. Is it not just for restaurants? Is it for like public plazas and on, how does that work?
Right. So the 400 number that I'm aware of is that the mayor announced 400 NYPD who will be going and dispatched to those areas that have seen an uptick in cases in Brooklyn specifically to enforce the mask, specifically the guideline on masks in public. So that's for those neighborhoods in which we're seeing that uptick in cases. With regards to the indoor dining enforcement of all of the social distancing guidelines, those will be made up of multiple inspectors from different agencies and the state. And so I don't have an actual number of how many of those people it will be. And I don't know the amount that the city will make up and the state will make up. So, you know, I'm happy to go back and try and find those answers. But at this point, I believe the mayor's office of special enforcement or the mayor's office of operations is pulling together inspectors from all the agencies that have inspectors so that they're all trained up on indoor dining regulations and that they will be the ones dispatched out to restaurants to make sure that they're all following the state's guidelines. So I hope that clarifies.
I just wanted to follow up. The number that I got was from a newspaper report and it had nothing to do with masks. It had everything just to do with the restaurants themselves. And that number was coming, it just said 400 enforcement personnel. It was not specific as to where they were coming from. And it did say, in addition to the quote unquote state police enforcement. And I think, as I mentioned earlier, I'm not sure you were on at that point, Judy, I've actually seen the fire department inspectors coming in and checking on the restaurant, even outdoors measuring the tables. So to Pauline's point, I think the mayor is drawing from various agencies in terms of enforcing the outdoor dining and indoor dining rules. So
I have further questions on this issue. So maybe I can speak to you offline and Pauline possibly offline on what my problem is.
okay, all right, that sounds good. Alita?
Valerie, oh, sorry,
Go ahead.
Valerie, if I may follow up on Judy's question. I was disappointed to hear that law enforcement would be involved in the social distancing enforcement because we've seen disproportionate policing in the way that that law enforcement has been deployed. And on a public health issue, I think it's we should be reconsidering how we use law enforcement. And so, Pauline, is there are there I'm guessing that DOH is incredibly strapped right now, but are there either DOH or other agency staff that could be doing that kind of enforcement or education? In the same way that the mayor's office is taking inspectors from other departments to train them on restaurant inspection, could there be other non-law enforcement agency staff who can assist with social distancing education?
Yes, so absolutely understand that concern. And I think in the beginning of the pandemic, the mayor was very clear that the NYPD wouldn't be used for this type of social distancing enforcement. I think because we are seeing such a drastic uptick in cases in certain communities that they have no other choice but to deploy the NYPD. Obviously, it's just fines. I don't believe anyone's going to be arrested for not wearing a face covering in public. But your point is very well taken. And as a public health agency, we really are very aware of racism as a public health crisis and all of those things that fall into disparities among neighborhoods. And that point is very well taken. And to your question, yes, there will be a multitude of other agency staff who will be going out and educating people specifically in those communities, but in general. So it'll be a DOH-MH staff, but also health and hospitals. And they really want to get people to go and get tested and then really follow through with the test and trace. So multiple agencies are going out and assisting with this education effort.
Thank you.
Judy, did you have any follow-up? Because if not, then we'll go to Alita.
Not at this time.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Alita, go ahead.
And then you also have Matt Bauer for the Madison Avenue bid who
Okay.
has his hand up.
Why
All
don't
right.
we Go to Matt first. Thanks, Valerie.
Sure. Hi, Matt. Welcome.
Hi, good to see you all, and hello to our city agency friends. Just a quick question. The 25% capacity is the same for other retail establishments in that it's based upon the certificate of occupancy. Is that correct? So it's C of O that's what it's based upon. It's still the C of O, right?
Right.
Since you have it all here, and 25% is a funny number, or not a funny number, it's a difficult number to calculate. Is there any way or any thought of working with DOB to make the certificate of occupancy easier to determine for a small business? Because especially if you're in an older building and you go to the Department of Buildings website, you try to download the C of O, it's complicated, especially if it's a building with multiple tenants on one floor. I'm just wondering if that's still what you're just saying is business should just go to the DOB website. Is there any other?
Right now, DOB is the agency that kind of oversees that. Those small establishments without a C of O or don't know the actual capacity of their location, the quick answer is to hire an engineer to make a determination as to what your capacity is in your space. But then, businesses being impacted the way they are right now, we would really be reluctant to tell businesses to do that. Right now, we are still waiting for guidelines from the Department of Buildings as to how they're going to make those determinations for small businesses. If you're in a larger space that has a place of assembly, obviously you can calculate 25% based on the place of assembly. But if you have less than 75 folks, that becomes quite a dilemma. I believe they're still working on some guidelines to provide businesses that won't cost them any additional monies in order to determine that. So it's still being worked on at this time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. Can you follow up with us, Eric, if you get any additional information relating to that?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Alita.
Okay, there's someone else who may be from the public, Valerie.
I
iPhone
see.
is the identifier. So I'm patient.
Oh,
And
yeah,
thank you.
iPhone.
iPhone, you'll just have to unmute yourself. There you go. Try speaking. You're unmuted right now. We can't hear you if you're speaking. I don't think your microphone's working. Maybe you have some headphones that don't have a microphone. While we wait, Alita, maybe you wanna.
Sure. Thank you. I have a few questions. I'd go from the broader to the more specific. So come November 1st, how are you going to determine whether to revisit the indoor dining? Will it depend on neighborhood? Will it depend on capacity? Will it depend on an overall city or borough infection rate? Do you have any idea? In other words, has it been determined yet how you will reassess the indoor dining? Okay, I'll ask my other questions. Do partitions between tables make up for a lack of 6 feet between them? So if they're very close together, does a partition work instead of the distancing? And are there specific guidelines about cleaning things like condiment bottles, salt and pepper shakers, containers that sugar packets are in between diners? I know people are really concerned about safety, and sometimes it's the little things that make a difference. So I wonder if there's guidance on that. Thank you.
Hi, sorry, this is Pauline from the health department. I was trying to unmute before. So I don't know the specific indicators that the state and the mayor's office will be looking into in terms of re-evaluation of the program. So I am happy to go back and figure out specifically what they're looking for, but I'm assuming it's based on the numbers of daily indicators that we are using now to make sure that the city can continue to move forward with reopening. So if we hit a threshold at any point over a 5% positive test rate, I think everything is going to have to go back to a lockdown. But with regards to, you know, potentially pausing the indoor dining, I don't know what that number is, and I don't know what they will be using as specific indicators. So I'm happy to try and see if we can get someone from the state to provide us with that information. And then with regards to the partitions, I haven't read through all of the state's guidelines on their indoor dining, the guidance that they provided on moving forward New York for indoor dining, but everything should be pretty much stated in that document. All businesses have to read and affirm that document before they can reopen or, you know, have indoor dining. So I can look through that document quickly and see if there's anything about the partitions, but I believe indoor dining, the tables do need to be 6 feet apart. I believe outdoor dining, partitions are okay, but people need to be about 6 feet apart, but I can double check that unless Tangela knows more with regards to that, or Eric.
I was gonna add on to that. So you can install physical barriers between patrons, you know, customers, even if 6 feet of distance is possible. So you can install partitions, but I believe even if you do, it should still be 6 feet, you know, of distance. But we can look into that. But we do have some education materials on our website, and it does say that you can install physical barriers between dealers and patrons, even if 6 feet of distance is possible.
I was thinking the reverse when it's not possible. And I have one more question, and thank you for your patience, is whether bars are allowed, if they're serving food, to be serving people indoors. I know there's no bar service in restaurants, and I apologize if this is well known, whether bars themselves are allowed to have indoor, now that they're required to serve food, if they call it dining, if they're allowed to move drinkers inside. And it would be concerning because I've seen outdoor bars with no food at all and tables full of drinks and crowded with people and no food inside anywhere.
I was just reviewing the state guidelines this afternoon, and I believe I read where if you are a bar and you do serve food, you must serve food, first of all. You cannot use the bar area. There would have to be a common area with tables and chairs. So if you are a bar and you do serve food, you cannot serve food at the bar. Tangela, maybe can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe I read that today earlier. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. I wish all the restaurants around the city success and safety for the patrons.
Yes. Could I ask a question? I finally got my headphones on, if you can hear me now. Okay. So
would you identify yourself? Sorry.
I'm sorry. My name is Colleen. I live on the Upper East Side, and we have a small business restaurant. So we're wondering, you know, we're more of an upscale dining. So it's not a bar, it's more upscale dining. We used to have a lot of people pre-theater and after theater that would come and even sit at a dining table and have like a glass of wine and a dessert, or just have a glass of wine or an after dinner drink. So I know it's like comparing apples and oranges, but I have to say that we turn away a lot of business of people because we're very concerned of them actually ordering a full meal. Then the other problem is if there's 3 people at the table and they say, well, I want to get the dinner, you buy the bottle of wine. But then we're concerned that an inspector comes and then they see that there's only a bottle of wine, but then there were 3 people at the table. So we're actually like turning away a lot of business, and it's really hard to turn away business during this time. So we're just wondering when, if ever, will it ever go back that people can sit and or wait and have a drink while they wait for their table? Because all those sales they count for the business, and it's really important. So if somebody has to wait 10 minutes for a table, and we tell them they're not allowed to have a drink while they're waiting, and we try to explain that they have to have food, but then they say, well, we are waiting for our table, we are going to eat food. So there's a lot of gray area, and if you could help us understand that, and if whenever it's going to go back, that people could actually sit and have a drink without eating, because that is all new.
Yeah, certainly. I think, we're following the New York State guidelines, that the governor issues. So as soon as we have updates from New York State, we can share them. And I know with regards to inspections, so they're done by the state, and also there's the mayor's office of special enforcement that also handles like business reopening complaints and inspections. So you have like state level and also city level. But regarding indoor dining and resuming like service, right, for bars, we would have to get updates from the governor on that.
Right. So like even if they're sitting at a dining table, they're not allowed just to come and have a drink or a drink and dessert. Like,
from my understanding, food must be served, right, Eric? You cannot just have like a drink
because we've been telling people it has to be like a meal, but we turn away a lot of business that people want to have, like, maybe they went somewhere else and they want to come to us and have an after dinner drink and dessert. But we turn away business. So we're trying to figure out how can we increase our sales, but still be within the guidelines.
Can I just follow up on Colleen's question? Because I thought the original rationale for the food and drink was that technically you're not supposed to have drinks out on the sidewalk with unless it's in a restaurant atmosphere. And what was happening on the street was that there was just drinking going on, and for a variety of reasons that was supposed to be downplayed. So to your question, Colleen, which I think is an excellent one, if you're indoors and you're but to your point that you're seated at a table,
right,
and served a drink just on its own, like you would, and I guess, Eric, I'm looking at you.
The same as somebody who orders a salad and a glass of wine. Are we allowed to have someone sit and order a glass of wine? I mean, because when you're selling a glass of wine for $20, I mean, in a business, $20 is a $20 sale plus the tip for the employees. Right. So you try to capture, engage, and and some people, they'll say, oh, I'm only going to be here for, a half hour, or I'm going to grab a gelato and a glass of wine. Can I do that? And so it's like all those little sales, that you're talking $30, $35 plus the employees' tips, it does add up. And so then you have a table sitting there and say it's 3:00 in the afternoon, and that's all they want to do is have like a sweet and a glass of wine, and we're turning people away. And they want to sit at a table.
Yeah. Eric, do you have any advice for that?
Yeah, so I'm not sure what meets the threshold of having a meal. It may be dessert and a drink that might be permissible. I'm not clear on that. We do know of small establishments that add appetizers on the menu, very small appetizers that could constitute as a meal. So I'm not really clear on that, but I'm not so sure turning people away because they order dessert would really be, that might. I'm not sure whether that's advisable or not.
Yeah.
So let me get back to you on that. But
okay.
Good question.
Yeah, because we're under the assumption it has to be like an actual like entree or a sizable salad appetizer, you know, not
Yeah.
ordering an order of fries.
Yeah. Will, how do we get Colleen and Eric Parker together so that they can continue this? It's
I
an
will-
excellent question, but
Yeah.
Yeah, Colleen, can you send me an email directly? I'll leave my contact information and I will have an answer for you tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay? Yeah, do that, please.
Yes. Thank
Okay.
you.
okay, great. Thank you very much, Colleen, for participating. And
Oh,
it sounds like you don't want to say the
thank
name
you.
of your restaurant, but we wish
No.
you great success no matter
Thank
what.
you so much. Thank you. It's been a rocky road, that's for
Yes.
sure.
Well, we're all pulling for you and we'll try to
Okay,
figure out who
thank
you are
you.
and come by your
Okay.
restaurant.
Okay, thank you so much.
Marco, I think you are next.
Thank you. I would like to address two issues. The first one is that do not have CO. Usually what DOB does is they issue the letter of no objection. The problem with that is DOB, they don't establish the number of people, and probably they are unwilling to establish. If it's small, they're gonna say 75 people, regardless of the size. It could be smaller than that. Or if it's higher than that, then they trigger other regulations. So the concern that should be is to call DOB, one of the agencies, and tell DOB to speed it up any application in order to establish the number of people and issue a letter of no objection with the number, with precise number of people, or the capacity of that place, of that venue. In addition to that, yes, any professional, they can do a very simple calculation. It's just only to calculate the area divided by 24 or 12 square feet. They give you the right day, the number. And DOB, it could be issued upon. So with this, this is more than a point of information. Now, my second point is the indoor dining. We know very well, the major problem is this virus transmission, transmission is through the air. And that is the biggest problem. The problem is you have people asymptomatic and symptomatic. The symptomatic you catch right away with one of the tests, whatever, thermometers, you can catch them. But the asymptomatic is the problem. If those people go inside of the place, that is coming the issue of ventilation. And the ventilation, I found a profound lack from the government, especially for Mr. Cuomo, that they said, oh, just change the filter. They tell us just only to change the filter, like one filter you change forever. It has to establish how frequently it has to be changed, those filters. Or how many, what is the quality of air, or how many changes of air is required. Because by law, it's required just only to change 20% of the inside air. So 80% they recycle and 20% they bring fresh air. In this case, it should be a mandatory that 100% it should be fresh air. So with that, you guarantee any air that go to the air conditioned is completely is outside, and the fresh air they put it inside. But this is just only for two kinds of systems or air conditions. We have the package system where I just described. And the second system is the split system, which is very popular right now. I myself, I'm one of the people that I used to install this kind of system because it's high efficient, quicker to install. But the problem is they don't offer ventilation. And now I found that it's very hard to use these split systems. Why? Because the only thing that this air condition does is doesn't ventilate. The only thing is just change the temperature inside. If they need hot, they put it hot. If they need cold, they put cold. But they recirculate the same air. And the major issue is the air, the quality of air. And that I found that a complete lack of regulations is hard, because not even ASHRAE, which is the agency for the engineers, which is usually govern all this kind of the inside ventilation, do not have a policy. But the major issue is if you increase the number of people, you increase the number of trouble inside. And that is my concern. My concern is lack of understanding how crucial and how important it is to have a fresh air inside of the spaces. And you cannot circulate the same air. The best way and the safest way, it should be 100% change of the inside. Never recirculate the air, even though that is required by code. But if it happens that, now the bill of the lights is going to increase dramatically in these restaurants that is starving for income. So my question to you is, it should have a policy for how frequently it should change the filter inside of the air condition, and for the split system, which basically they recycle 100%, they just put cold or hot inside. It has to have some policy too, because otherwise, when it's create a trouble in those restaurants, how are you going to proceed to clean those restaurants? And this is basically is something that you don't see that. You can put 6 feet apart the width, the tables, and you can see, you go and see, you can see, but the air, nobody see that. And that is my major concern. I would like to hear any answer for that. Thank you.
Pauline, is that a health department concern?
It should be.
So yeah, I mean, I think it's more of a question for the state in terms of guidelines around ventilation, and then requiring businesses to then purchase different ventilation systems. I'm not 100% sure what that would look like and how that would work for businesses that are already struggling, but definitely get the point that Marco was making about the fact that there needs to be fresh air. I think that's why the city opened up, or the state opened up, with a 25% capacity, and then with the additional temperature checks at the door, because it's thought that you are more able to transmit when you are actively ill. So, you know, coughing and sneezing, and those particles are in the air. So, you know, people will be able to assess their patrons at the door to see whether or not they're actively showing symptoms, and then temperature checks just to make sure that maybe if they're not showing symptoms but have an elevated temperature, that they can also ask that person unfortunately not enter their premise. And so I think all of these guidelines together are put in place to minimize the risk. But again, right, like we just don't know, and everything is sort of just trying to figure out as we go, which sounds terrible, but I mean, this is something that we've never encountered before. And so I think being conservative in terms of limiting how many people come in, and having those temperature checks, and having a contact for one person in the party, I think all of these are in place to really just do our best in making sure that businesses can reopen, but also being responsible in not returning to a place where we had rampant community transmission.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Kaz, did you have your hand up?
He did, but he's lowered it, so.
He's talking a little bit. I don't know. Yes, no, do you want to ask? Okay, unmute Kaz, please.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Based on what I've heard tonight, I mean, yes, we're allowing the restaurants to open with a 25%, but it seems like everything is being thrown upon them. It's up to them to basically take care of many, many things. A lot of the equipment, the filters and the air conditioners and the heating lamps and this, they're so short in stock, it takes you 6 months to get. So, I mean, trying to open now is like, you know, trying to struggle uphill with shackles. You know, there's so many different rules, regulations, and they keep changing every single day.
Yeah.
Would it be possible for the agencies to come together, to come with a real, true, you know, opening scenario and go? With the Department of, with the C of O, from what Matt and Marco was saying, that some buildings don't have a C of O. So do I take 75 people as the C of O, as the maximum number? Do I take it on the square foot? Okay, I open with all the restrictions. Along comes the DOB, DCA or whoever. and I get fined. What is the, there's so many pitfalls to opening, and a lot of restaurants are not going to open because of these pitfalls. Is there any coherent, communication between the different agencies and the state? I guess it's questions and comments.
As I mentioned earlier, we had a discussion with the Department of Buildings before our indoor dining webinar from last week. And so they are still working out the details of how folks without a C of O in the building can make that calculation accurately. So, I mean, it's still being worked on. So I'm sorry I don't have an answer for you right now, but it is forthcoming. That's all I can really say at this time.
Well,
So in the meantime, I should not open.
yeah. Well, I mean, let me ask you a question. Go ahead, Buzz. No, go ahead.
No,
I was just going to say, Eric, you mentioned in the beginning that you had some kind of like, you could do a virtual consultation. So I guess I would be encouraging, if you think that a restaurant owner call your agency up directly and talk about their situation, and then maybe you can sort of customize the answer for them.
That is certainly a start. Thank you so much, Valerie. That is certainly a start. I would advise the gentleman to definitely submit an application for a compliance consultation or make an appointment for a virtual consultation. But with regards to the certificate of occupancy and total occupancy, that's a tricky one. That really doesn't fall under our jurisdiction. Like I mentioned, we are aware of the fact that DOB is looking for putting together some guidelines on that for small businesses that don't know what their capacity is. Yeah, definitely. I would advise the gentleman to certainly have one of our people contact you to just sort of talk to you about what solutions you can come up with regards to capacity in your space.
Yeah, but I think the message, if I can talk for cause for a second, the message really is, these restaurant owners are put in this dire situation. They don't want to get in trouble. They need to make money, and it's not like the government, city, state, whatever you want to say, didn't know that this day was going to come. So it's like when they open up, it's not like these issues should be a surprise to anybody, but now it's on the backs and the pockets of the restaurant owners to take all the risk. And there doesn't seem to be a lot of, there's no like, okay, if you make a mistake the first couple of weeks, we're going to work with you. We're not going to give you a fine, or, to encourage them to even attempt this. So I guess, let me just say it again, for that, making the call for let's say the virtual consultation, is that 188 SBS number 4 NYC? Is that
Correct.
it? Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
And you can reach out to me directly. I left my contact information in the chat. You can certainly reach out to me directly, and I can make the arrangements for that consultation. Okay.
Great.
I wish I had a better answer for you, unfortunately.
Yeah.
My apologies.
I wanted to add, hi, this is Tangela. So I understand, things are constantly changing for businesses, and we just want to let everyone know, our agency, Department of Health, Small Business Services, we all work closely together, and we do want to make sure that businesses have the most updated information. So we do encourage business owners to call the hotlines or visit our website for the latest guidance. And in addition, I wanted to mention there's the Mayor's Office of Nightlife. That is a resource for restaurant, bar establishments, and we have direct contacts with them, and they do have a lot of great resources for restaurants and bars with the reopening and guidance on their website. And we can definitely, following up on this meeting, connect you guys to their office, but they are also a resource. But definitely reach out to our respective agencies, and we do work closely together to do a lot of virtual outreach as well as field outreach as well. And I know, there's just a lot of information, right? Overload right now in regards to indoor dining, and we have to follow New York State guidelines, right? We're, we are city agencies, but we do want to make it easier for businesses, and also wanted to mention, like, a lot of our materials are in the top, 10 languages. We are city government, so I understand it can be tricky navigating, especially if there's like a language barrier, and we do have language access. We do have materials in multiple languages, and if people call us, they can ask for an interpretation if they call like our hotline numbers as well. Thank you.
Well, that's great, Tangela. I don't know, will Colleen had her hand up again? I just want to give her an opportunity if she's there to follow up.
So I have a question. I know that somebody who is dealing with a very difficult situation, since there's so many storefronts empty and commercial spaces empty, one restaurant owner may put tables in front of the empty storefront area. And then that landlord, that owner is asking for money from the restaurant people per day, per table, and their guests, they go online, read your menu prices, and they go and calculate how many people and how much they're probably doing in sales, and then they're asking for a percentage every day. How do you deal with that when I understand the landlords are also hurting because they don't have a commercial tenant anymore because they probably closed up? But then to go to the one that's trying to survive and then asking them for money, what do you recommend for those friends that are dealing with that situation?
Well, first of all, to my knowledge, conducting business outside of your property line is not legal. Okay. So,
okay.
Yeah. So
okay.
We're not an enforcement agency. So I mean, I really
okay.
wouldn't. Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify. So you're asking about like other merchants within the restaurant, like outside the restaurant conducting business. Is that correct?
1 second, she is muted again.
I'm sorry. Yes. I guess, like maybe they have 3-4 tables out in front of an empty storefront.
So they're actually encroaching on the adjacent property?
Yeah. In front of someone else's property. Yeah. But when they start asking for money, I just to pull theirs away, and that's it.
Well, obviously they're not very cooperative. I mean, I know that, I think everybody who's walking up and down the Upper East Side has seen a lot of tables in front of empty storefronts where there's a restaurant adjacent to it. And in most of the cases that I'm aware of, it's been a very cooperative relationship.
Yes, yeah.
I feel that, the property owner is correct. I mean, you can't be on their property without their consent.
Yeah.
Hi, sorry, it's Pauline from the health department. So I'm on DOT's website with regards to open dining or outdoor dining, and it says under adjacent properties, it states the city will allow restaurants to expand seating to the frontage of adjacent properties as long as the adjacent property owners formally agree to the use of the space for a specified period of time and commit to a no charge fee for its use. So they should not be charging, and the agreement should be formalized. I don't know what that means in terms of formalized.
Well, what it means is that you need to have their consent. They can't charge you for the right to use the property, but my original answer remains the same. You can't do it without their consent.
I guess the situation is those property owners know that they have you, because if you need it to make your business survive, and say they said yes, and then they're saying, well, I did say yes, but I'm just saying hypothetically, we did say yes, but now you're going to have to give me money.
Well, then you can take the regulation that Pauline has just told you, or you can send it to your friend, and they can put it in front of the landlord owner and say, the only way you can agree is if you don't charge me any rent. So are you in it or you're not in it? I
Right.
mean, that's the
Yeah.
end of that story.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they can either
Yeah.
agree or not agree, but it has to be a rent-free arrangement. So
Okay.
maybe that will persuade the landlord that what they're asking them to do is you know, illegal in some
Right,
way,
right.
shape, or form.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, is there anybody else who has a hand raised? I don't,
Yeah, Marco and Cos both have their hands up.
okay. Well, we just, Kaz, do you want to finish up? Go ahead.
Yeah, as far as the adjacent, I mean, some time ago, we asked DOT and DOT said no. An inspector came out and he said, fine, as long as your name is on the lease to the building next door, you can. Then DOT says, no, as long as you get formal agreement, you can. So, you know, 3 different people, 3 different responses. Now, the latest thing, yes, you are allowed to go on the sidewalk, on the street without paying rent. So the landlords that are charging, theoretically, you could report them. I mean, they're, you know, charging you, but
Kaz,
yeah.
you have to have the formal agreement
Oh,
between
yeah,
you.
no, I
Yeah,
agree,
okay,
yes,
okay.
but they cannot charge you.
Right,
So
exactly. Exactly.
theoretically, you know, so tonight I've heard, yes, you can, no, you can't. So, I mean, even tonight, 3 different people, we've heard 2 or 3 different results. So would it be possible for the CBA to put a website somewhere or somewhere online, one location that we all get the right information? I don't want to go to DOB, DOH, FDNY, the state, the city, the this, the that, and everything else. And you go to different sites, they're all different.
So the main site you should visit is the one that we just shared, and we actually included all the new information that was added to this page in our last e-blast. If you are not subscribed to our e-blast, you should. About adjacent properties, about heating, about tents,
Right.
and about the roadway changes that were recently announced. Pauline, do you remember when that was? Like a week ago?
I'm not 100% sure. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I put you on the spot. Sorry.
It's okay.
Thanks. Well, can you email
But
it to?
sorry, this is Pauline again. To your
Yeah.
point, it's now written on DOT's website that you are able to use the adjacent property with their consent in a formal
Yeah.
agreement and without charge. So if an inspector were to come and give the restaurant owner a hard time about adjacent property, they can pull up the DOT's website and say, it's right here in black and white. We can do this. We have a formal agreement. Here is what it is. So I think in the beginning, there wasn't any like formalized FAQ on that. And so now it's definitely on the internet. It's out there. It's pretty clear. So definitely, if you're hearing that inspectors are not adhering to that, you should let the mayor's office know, or if it's a state inspector, let the governor's office know that their inspectors are not, you know, they're not following what the guidelines are.
Right. The only thing I would say there is that the restaurant needs to have that formal agreement easily accessible to show the inspector when they come on the grounds. And this way they can just say, here's the formal agreement, and that's, you know, that should end it. But okay, Marco, did you have one more question?
I do. I think it's more than point of information right here. The Small Business Administration used to have DOB together working in different restaurant projects. I used to file a lot of projects through the Small Business Administration, and I think they just separated about 7 or 8 months ago. So you have the infrastructure, you have the connection with the plan examiner with DOB. You should be the leading agent that put together these two organizations. And since you have a knowledgeable person in restaurants, that's what you used to have. He can easily go back to your place, and probably since you are offering loans, some kind of financial situation, you can finance some of the expenses for this business, having DOB resolving the technical issues and the financial situation, you can resolve right away too, because you used to work very well. I don't know why you stopped, but no more, it's not allowed anymore, the connection, the DOB with small business administration. So I think that will be a great move for all the restaurants that usually they can go directly to your place, Eric, and in your place, you resolve everything. And then you also have connection directly with DOT. So what Cos was mentioning is exactly what it is. You have the solution. And that's my point of view right here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Marco. I think a lot of the next 30 days is going to be a lot of trial and error. Hopefully the infection rate stays at a point to allow the next 30 days to create this sort of experiment period to see what happens. Because I know like there are a lot of restaurants on the Upper East Side that though they're small, like the front of their restaurant literally opens to the air. And so I would think at some point the guidelines would allow for them to have more than 25% capacity if in fact like their entire front door is open and you have complete open air exposure. I mean, I would think that that would be one of the things that the Department of Health and whoever's responsible would be looking at in terms of if you have open air and you have a very small location, then maybe you can go beyond the 25%. I mean, it may not be as warm, but you know, these days, who knows how long we're going to be at 65 degrees. I mean, if you're indoors and it's 65 degrees and you've got body heat and a will to sit there and eat, it could work out well for everyone. Okay, are there any more questions? Because I think it's a 4:45. We've been very lucky tonight to have these 3 representatives from these city agencies. And I really appreciate the fact that we have had some restaurant owner participation tonight. And Eric, we are going to give out that phone number a lot to our friends in the restaurants on the Upper East Side to encourage them to get out there and make sure they can be a success.
Absolutely, absolutely. The information is changing so drastically and so quickly, and so forgive me for misspeaking about the adjacent property issue. I mean, it's just so hard to keep up with all the information that's happening, and it's being rolled out constantly. So
we completely understand, and we just are very appreciative, you know, for everybody on this call. It wasn't more than like 48 business hours ago that we reached out to the 3 agencies to see if we could get people, and they responded very quickly, and we're very pleased that we could have them here tonight to answer questions. And I'm hoping that this is the beginning of a dialogue and that we can keep in touch with questions that come to the community board. Sarah, do you want to add anything?
No, just to echo your gratefulness to our city partners and state partners who are here tonight to help us work this through and to take direct questions from the community. It makes such a difference to have you here and for our community folks to be able to ask you directly about problems, so we can help facilitate and they can get answers, especially on issues where they may get 3 different answers. And so having you all here at the same time, we saw an example of how useful that was tonight. It's kind of like one-stop shopping tonight. So it was, we're so lucky to have had you all here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Valerie, before you go, can I ask a question?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Thanks. I just wanted to ask, as long as we have, and thank you for being here, the government reps, is there any move for retail stores that are interested in using sidewalks to be able to do that? I know that there has been a lot of resistance to that, but since this is small business and includes retail, I thought I would ask. Other community boards have the same question about availability of sidewalk space for retail.
I do know that Department of Transportation was discussing that during the Open Streets program, but I'm not sure what the outcome of that conversation was. I mean, it would make sense that in order to help New York as a whole, its economy, would be to kind of include those retail businesses in the sidewalk, in the use of sidewalk for commerce. but I no additional information on that at this time. That would definitely be a determination made by the Department of Transportation. If we find out any information regarding that, certainly we'll share that with the public as soon as we possibly can, or as soon as we get updated information on that.
Thank
Great.
you.
That's great. Does anybody have any other business they want to bring up, or anything that needs to be discussed tonight? Well, we're around, so if you have items for the agenda for next time, please let us know. Again, this is a very fluid situation, and we're all out there hoping for the success of our local businesses, restaurants, and small businesses alike. Support them as best you can, and let's hope that our thriving, what's the opposite of a ghost town? Whatever that is, that's what we are.
Live
So,
people town.
we're a people town. We're a people town. Come and visit. Former residents and all. Okay. On that happy note, I'll say good evening to everyone, and happy October tomorrow. Bye-bye, everyone. Thank you very much for participating.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.
Thank you all.